The year is 2003. I am 10 years old, and I am walking around Ingram Park Mall with my parents when we arrive at the Suncoast Motion Picture Company. The somewhat dim lighting of the store is something that I've always found to be at once imposing and comforting. It's not my first time in the store, nor will it be my last. As my father makes his way towards the science fiction movies to begin browsing, I am drawn towards the collectibles section. Nestled amongst the McFarlane figures depicting various horror-themed characters is a collection of starter sets and boosters for the recently launched Yu-Gi-Oh! Spin-off Dungeon Dice Monsters. I don't have any money of my own at this time to buy any of it, but I managed to convince my parents to get me the starter set. I never end up playing with it because I don't have friends who are willing to learn how to play. I never get my hands on any booster packs, and eventually I end up losing all of the components of the starter set. 2 decades later, this memory stands out in my mind clear as day as I forlornly wish I could go back in time with my current purchasing power and buy as much as possible. But Dungeon Dice Monsters no longer exists in stores, and neither does the store Suncoast itself. The year is 2014. I am 20 years old, on the cusp of adulthood. Old enough to legally vote, but not old enough to legally drink. It is a Friday, so my friends from Angelo State University and I decide to take a trip to our local Hastings. It is a shop which feels at once vast and cozy. It is not my first time in the store, nor will it be my last. As I browse the shelves, which are haphazardly stuffed with merchandise for various movies and games, I stifle a laugh at the small collection of Funko Pop vinyls that have been crushed by other better figures, their boxes deformed from the weight of everything pressing down on them. While I do this, my friend Mike stares wistfully at the Half-Life gravity gun replica on the shelves of the video game section. He comments on wanting to buy it, but he doesn't. He never does. A decade later, he expresses regret at never having bought it when the store was having a closing clearance. That Hastings no longer exists, and that gravity gun's whereabouts are unknown. The year is 2024. I am at Entertainmart in Arlington, where I now live. The low lighting reminds me of Suncoast. The eclectic selection of merchandise reminds me of Hastings. But it's not the same as either. An entire wall is lined with those same Funko Pop vinyls. The used and retro video games are priced far too high for me to be seriously interested in purchasing any of them. Nothing about the store feels unique. Everything that I can buy here, I can buy at plenty of other places in or around Arlington, and what I can't find here, I can find easily online. I don't know why I am here. I don't know how long this store will be here. I don't know if I'll miss it when it's gone. I was talking last week with some of my college friends on our shared Discord server about the recently announced cancellation of Game Informer, when that same Mike I mentioned moments ago began to reminisce about buying the magazine at Hastings, which led us all down memory lane as we thought about the experiences we all had revolving around the store, which had now been gone for several years, the company having gone defunct in 2016. I recognize that it may sound silly to get all moony about a faceless retail chain, and maybe it really is an indictment of our decadent Western society, but I can't help it. San Angelo wasn't really a place with a lot of things for nerdy college kids to get up to if you didn't give a shit about Magic the Gathering. If we wanted to go out and do something, a walk around Hastings was about as good as anything else. With such a wide variety of things on sale, pretty much everyone would find something to catch their interest, and sometimes we'd come home with a new board game to play or a new movie to watch. Or sometimes we would buy our friend Timmy a Switchblade Sport from their gag gift section. I still remember buying my first rulebook for Call of Cthulhu at that same Hastings, a game that I would love for the rest of my life, and the first game I had ever worked up the courage to GM myself. I remember buying the CD Some Nights by Fun, whose title track I would play on repeat a year later while trying to work up the nerve to ask out the woman who would eventually become my wife. I remember going to that same Hastings looking for a gift to get her the year we started dating, and settling on one of those impractically large D20s that lights up when you get a crit. What I'm getting at here is that I know I have a lot of memories tied up in that Hastings, and I don't just suspect that it's coloring my judgment, I know for a fact that it is. Just as I know that my rose-tinted glasses are making the Suncoast of my memories a much more magical place than the Entertainmart that I can still visit today, that in reality probably has a better selection of items than that same Suncoast ever did. And I am likewise just as aware that literally every generation will eventually grouse about how things were so much better in their day, and that kids these days are missing out on all the fun stuff from our youth, like 5-cent saltwater taffy and polio. But with all that said, is it just me who feels like the magic of multimedia stores is almost completely gone in 2024? Am I the only one who feels like shopping kinda sucks now? Unfortunately, just like the death of Game Informer, I can't help but feel like the death of these stores, or at least what made them feel special, was sort of an inevitability in the modern age. Things now are just different than they were in 2014, and may as well be an entirely different world than that of the 2000s, when Barnes & Noble was first and foremost a bookstore. What made stores like Suncoast so special back when I was a kid was that there weren't stores on every block stuffed to the gills with the exact same merchandise. Those same McFarlane figures I mentioned in the opening of this video were special because you couldn't just go down to your local big box retailer to buy one. You had to go to weird places like Suncoast or your local comic shop, something that was still many years from being considered acceptable in many public circles, and definitely where I grew up. In fact, it almost felt like a taboo back in my childhood. It felt almost dangerous to go to a place where they were selling toys meant for adults, or teens at the very least, and get your mind out of the gutter, I mean literal toys. Whether or not you agree that nerds have come closer than they ever have lately to going mainstream, I think we can all agree that it's at least become a lot easier to find things related to our various interests when compared to even a decade ago. So, if that's the case, why does shopping for merch feel less satisfying than ever? Well, maybe that convenience is a big part of it. Anyone who's wasted as much of their retirement fund on trading cards as I have will tell you that part of what makes it so thrilling when you finally get what you want is the hunt. To quote Yahtzee Croshaw,
"If I could just wave my hands and conjure not just a grilled cheese sandwich, but 2 grilled cheese sandwiches being worn as a bra by a swimsuit model constructed from grilled cheese sandwiches, it'd take all satisfaction out of life."
Which I guess is as good a point as any to transition into talking about online shopping. Now look, my intent with this video is not to be the old man yelling at a cloud about the convenience of the modern world. I'm an Amazon Prime member, and you'll pry my free 2-day delivery from my cold, dead hands. Or more likely the cold, dead hands of the mistreated Amazon factory workers who thanklessly gave their lives to ensure that I could get my copy of Do You Like Big Girls Volume 1 on time. Just kidding, I actually ordered it from Barnes & Noble's website. Hello from the editing phase. So originally the idea was that at this point I was going to put a video on screen of me pulling out that manga from an Amazon box, but as it turns out, I don't know where I put it, and it might even be in storage for all I know, so in lieu of that quasi-hentai, here is some Super Sentai. What I'm getting at is that online shops like Amazon have made it easier than ever for people with more specified interests to be able to find and purchase things that would have been a holy grail back in the days when you were lucky to have any sort of niche store nearby to you. God help you if you lived in the sticks like I did as a child. My hometown was a full half-hour drive from anything resembling a civilization, and we didn't even get a Walmart until after I had already moved off to college. And that's why I have to recognize that, for the consumer at least, Amazon and online shopping in general is an overall positive. People who don't have easy geographical access to stores that sold a larger variety of multimedia goods can now at least hop onto Amazon and buy as many volumes of You Like Me Not My Daughter as they please without having to put miles on their car like they're smuggling MILFs across state lines. And for that I am genuinely appreciative and realize how privileged a complaint this sounds like, but I found that this convenience has led to a sort of homogenization of the in-person shopping experience. Capitalism being what it is, massive corporations like Amazon, who can afford to operate at a scale at which they do, eventually start eating everybody's lunch, something we've seen more and more of as the years have gone by. My beloved Hastings was just one of the many casualties in this years-long war of attrition, notable only for being larger than the mom-and-pop shops who are always first on the chopping block. Unfortunately, this kind of big box entertainment store where you could go to buy video games, books, and novelty beer bongs was just spreading itself too thin to operate at the scale that it did, and ultimately that's what led to its inevitable death. If you want to have a little bit of everything, you're gonna lose to the place that has a lot of everything. And that's what's led to what I believe makes in-person shopping so unsatisfying nowadays: homogeneity. In the cutthroat state of modern retail, trying to spread yourself too thin means that you're directly competing against stores that have way more resources to go even wider than you do. Target, Walmart, hell, even Best Buy sells action figures and plushies now. And then there's GameStop. GameStop is such a strange case. After absorbing and then shuttering all the physical locations for ThinkGeek within the past few years, GameStop went from having a small selection of non-video game merchandise in their stores to becoming a store that was basically half physical goods and half games. And by physical goods, I basically mean the entire Funko catalog. It's well established at this point that any given GameStop you visit in 2024 will have at least a single wall devoted to their selection of Funko Pops. And these little bastards are the bloody beating heart of everything that has gone to shit with the state of geek goods since their inception. What better exemplar of the crushing homogeneity of the modern multimedia shopping experience than the soulless dead eyes of this deformed homunculus that has had Play-Doh manifestations of the characters from a million franchises molded onto their cheap plastic exteriors? These things are the modern ethos of in-person merch shopping personified. A single product line that they can slap any face onto in order to exploit the love of a given piece of media and extract a few dollars from the uncritical citizen. After all, is the average person who grew up watching Yu-Gi-Oh! More likely to buy the $75 Exodia model kit when on a casual outing, or are they more likely to buy the $8 Winged Karibo Funko Pop? And hey, feel free to call me a hypocrite, I own both! In fact, I own a small collection of the non-human Yu-Gi-Oh! Pops because the designers actually took the time out of their day to make something that looks half decent. But is this what we should aspire to? Something that looks good for a Funko Pop? Is that the best that anyone can ask? It certainly shouldn't be, but you wouldn't know it by looking around at your local stores or on the shelf of at least one of your friends. To say nothing of a more modern-day trend, the anime goods store. Yes, as a result of anime becoming more and more mainstream over the years, more and more physical shops have begun popping up in US stores that act like year-round convention booths. And I will now tell you exactly what you can expect to find at just about any of them. If you've got a good one, you'll find a selection of model kits and blind box figures that have been marked up to account for import fees, as well as a variety of plushies. If you're not so lucky, you'll find a selection of stickers, decals, and keychains, most of which are using stolen art assets, and a selection of cheap Chinese cosplay outfits. Once again, pointing out my own hypocrisy, I own one of these stupid little stickers. And no matter which of those two categories your store falls into, you can bet that in addition to all of that, you'll find all of the Naruto and Dragon Ball Funko Pops you've never wanted. But hey, do I blame the stores? Well, yes actually, but I get it. You're trying to run a store that even in the modern day is filling a niche, and as such you have to get the things that are most likely to sell. Funko Pops do sell. $15 Pokemon blind boxes sell. And the person walking into your store and buying a lenticular Goku sticker for their car isn't going to care where the art came from. It's not their fault, it's what the market has become. It's the future we've made for ourselves. So, where does that leave us? Well, it leaves us with a question. A question that I am going to pose to you, the viewer, and especially to the younger viewers in the audience. And that question is this. Am I full of shit? It's a genuine question. I mentioned earlier that every generation tends to believe that they had it better than the next, and while I'm as worried about the children of parents who let iPads do their babysitting as anyone else should be, I want to leave my thoughts on the matter open to challenge from differing perspectives. To me, shopping in person these days just feels hollow compared to how it used to, but maybe it really is just the nostalgia talking. Maybe I just miss the memories I associate with those stores when, in reality, they were no more special than the stores of today. Maybe things really are better now than they've ever been, and I've just become too bitter and jaded. I honestly hope so. So, please, you the person watching this video, leave me your thoughts. Do you enjoy in-person shopping? Do you prefer to just buy everything online? Am I just a cringe consumer who puts too much importance on the act of consumption? Well, yeah, probably. But whatever your thoughts, please leave them in a comment below. And before you head out, consider watching another one of my videos. For a much less depressing diatribe, why not watch my last video where I talk about how cool Ultraman is and how stupid you are for not having watched it yet. And as always, just remember that this has been a powerfully pointless video, but I hope you enjoyed it anyways. Please stop buying Funko Pops.